Station. Today, on Impromptu Review, we will be covering Time Long Ago, a place not far away, the Eternals. Anyways, yes, the opening for the Eternals was very Star Wars opening. We had a scroll, we didn't have a planet, but we had a sun and a ship. It's like, I'm wondering if Marvel didn't try to make they're trying to make a point that they can make a better Star Wars movie than Lucasfilms. But anyways, the movie was good. It suffers from a lot of the I wouldn't say, well, it suffers, but not quite as badly as some movies have, where you've got a large cast and characters, of unknown characters. Like Avengers was fine because a lot of them had already had their own movie or were somehow introduced in other films, and yeah, so you knew what you were getting to. You didn't have to deal with an extra long movie with trying to fill in their backstory, finding out who they are, so you actually care about these characters. So it does suffer a bit from that, which is probably why it's on the long side. And I say suffer a bit because it wasn't terrible. It kept you engaged. A lot of it was done through flashbacks, so the story would progress some, and before they would go to their next destination, you get a flashback that kind of focused on the people they were going to go see, so you were filled in slowly. Now, it worked, and I think part of the problem is these are Eternals, and they have a long history. And like the Guardians Galaxy did it perfectly. They had a little bit smaller cast, but still they had a cast of unknown characters. And I had to think about it because it's actually done so well you don't even notice it. But a lot of the character, there is exposition interlaced through everything, and it's done kind of off the fly that it's not even noticed. It's not like an exposition dump where you're just given all this information. It's a comment by this person, seeing the person do this, something like that, amongst action and everything else happening. So it feels more organic and doesn't feel drawn out or boring. Like I said, the Eternals was a little bit different, and they probably couldn't do stuff like that because the Eternals have lived long lives, and there was a lot to actually give. Plus, there was some good opportunity for action scenes, which we'll get to that later. The characters of the movie were interesting, some more than others, as it took longer for the film to actually highlight some of the other characters. In the end, though, I would say they were all very interesting, and they had their own chemistry between each other. I mean, they ultimately they seemed like kind of a family unit of sorts. I mean, I couldn't really say this is the big brother, this is the father, this is the mother, or anything like that. But collectively, they had, like a family type chemistry unit going on between them. Of course, you spend enough time with people, like they've literally spent thousands of years with each other. Something kind of would form from that. Now, the story is very interesting, and it builds off some of the lore that has been developed, although it felt like it didn't quite line up with right with some of the things that had been shown in the other movies. For instance, like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and what we knew about you know, Thanos and some other stuff. But there was one problem. It wasn't really with the story, it's more the characters in the story, and I think it wasn't dealt with wasn't dealt with well, simply because of the length the movie already was, and they just kind of skipped over it. I can't really tell too much here. I will explain it more in the spoilers, and there will be a spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen the film, you don't want to go past that, unless you don't mind being spoiled. So yeah, and the problem, you know, it's not that the problem was the length of the film, is that they didn't handle it, because it would have made the film even longer. And although I think all they really maybe needed was a scene or two, it's basically showing how the characters dealt with something, because it felt like they just flipped, you know, with no, humans don't just change on a dime. So yeah, I think it was most likely the time length of the movie that caused this kind of problem. I mean, it's not a big problem, but it does seem kind of odd. So this movie isn't obvious by looking at the cast. It definitely was fueled by the diversity initiative going on amongst Hollywood and Disney and, you know, all that stuff. And I don't agree with all of that, but I don't think it's necessary, especially with the Marvel Universe, as there are plenty of diversity that you don't need to, you could just do, oh, well, we're just going to do this character. Oh, he happens to be black. Okay, well, he's black. We have this black hero coming out next movie, or this, you know, or this group that has different ethnicities in it, which has always been the case. I mean, you know, I grew up with X-Men as a kid, and the cartoon. It was already baked in there. It's like we don't have to make a big deal about it. But it's here, and it was definitely in this movie. Now, it was obvious, but it wasn't nailing over your head that, yes, this is what we have to do, and it wasn't done poorly. Now, I was rather happy to see that they even included somebody with a disability in the movie, because that oftentimes is overlooked in everybody's diversity thing. It's like, what about people who, you know, have a disability that they should count, but yet they don't. This case, they actually did, and even though like I said, I don't think it's necessary, and I think this is the wrong way to go about things, is forcing things, because you're potentially causing more trouble. And like I said, Marvel characters don't need it. Like, we had the Black Panther, and I don't know if it was necessarily done because of the push for diversity and stuff. If it wasn't, well, it was there anyways. It's always been there. Black Panther is an African. I mean, and we've already had a black Marvel hero before. He's not quite in the MCU, but Blade, he's had multiple movies, successful movies, one would say that some of the later ones weren't, obviously, or they would have kept making them, probably. But so, yeah, and the diversity was done pretty well for the most part. There's a kissing scene. It felt shoehorned in there. It just didn't feel natural, like it was a natural progression. Like it was its own separate scene. That it's like, okay, you didn't make that like a natural story progression, or this just natural happened. You had to make a separate scene just for that. And quite honestly, it was pretty poorly done. Like, I don't know how to. It didn't feel real. That's what I want to say. It didn't feel real. Okay, anyways. Besides that mess, which I hate having to even talk about that, but it's obvious for this movie, even more so than Shang-Chi. But yeah, I hate talking about it, but there it is. This movie is not rotten. I don't know if anybody else has been paying attention to the critics' reviews, but they've been pretty negative for a Marvel movie. Like, they've never been this negative for a Marvel movie. And I watched the movie, and I'm really not think that those reviews were unfounded. Yes, the movie is long. Is it boring? No, unless you're just not paying attention to it to begin with. But the thing is, this is actually more normal than it usually is, or than it has been. Growing up, it hasn't been till recently that, like, critics giving these type of movies great raving reviews is strange. At least it was strange at one point in time, because the critics can be snobs. It's not quite what it is. The characters and this, it's not Shakespeare. Basically, they're Marvel movies. They're not supposed to be Shakespeare or anything like that. But that is actually what I would expect from critics, anyways, from years past, anyways. So the current thing where the critics don't really like this movie is not unfounded. This is the way it used to be. So what changed it to begin with? Well, the movie may not have been rotten, but there's definitely some rotten things going on behind the scenes, and I'm not sure, and some of this is speculation on my part, but like, I think they're either getting perks. They may not be getting paid off, but they're getting perks to give good reviews, and that's simply it. There's been recently movies that have gotten good reviews from the critics, and the audience scores are poor. And I did check Rotten Tomato when I got home after watching the movie, and it's gotten 82. Well, it was 84 when I first checked. It was 82 when I got up this morning. I wanted to do the review last night, but I was too tired and I needed to sleep and digest what I had seen and figure out what I wanted to talk about. But yeah, the audience score is better than the critic score. Now, this used to be the case a lot of times, and especially for any comic book movie or anything like that. The critics wouldn't give them really good review anyways. So yeah, there's some corruption, or has been corruption. Now things have changed, and it's, I don't want to give any specifics of this because I don't really know anyways. I think there's been a change at Disney and people running Disney, and there's also a possibility that a lot of the issues with the lawsuit and stuff going on had gone on. It's over and done with Scarlett Johansson and the Black Widow. May have tainted some people's opinions about things, and for one, that issue was with Disney, not with Marvel, because Disney is the one that decided to they do the distribution, not Marvel. The Marvel, which is, yes, it's under Disney, but they don't make the decisions where the movies go. That's ultimately Disney as the distributor. There we go, distributor. It's up to them to where the movie goes, and that's really where the lawsuit was. It wasn't with Marvel. So if the critics are bashing Marvel over that, then they're bashing the wrong people. If it was a Disney directly made movie, well then yeah, I could see it, but it wasn't. So I don't know. There's corruption, of course. Unfortunately, there's corruption everywhere, and we can't even enjoy our entertainment without it interfering. On that note, I do recommend going to watch the movie. It is a good movie if you don't mind long movies. Some people just can't sit through a long movie, even good ones. And I say a good one is one that you don't notice it's long. And this one, for the most part, you don't notice. It's a little bit rough at the beginning with the flashbacks, because they go somewhere, then there's a flashback, and something happens back in the present, and they go somewhere, and then there's another flashback. So the story's not, it's kind of drawn out there at the beginning until they're done with the flashbacks, and they can just focus on the here and now. So yeah, if you're one of those that can't sit through a long movie, no, don't go. But it's not boring. Overall, it's a decent Marvel movie. It's not their worst. It's not their best. It's okay. They're still doing well, despite they're still making good movies despite this initiative to shove diversity down everybody's throat. Even though it should just be done naturally anyway, especially with Marvel that's had a diverse cast of characters for a long time. Yeah, and it's, like I said, good Marvel. It's a little bit more on the serious side, but it still has a good dose of humor to balance it all out with. Not quite as funny as some of the other ones. I love Thor Ragnarok. It's definitely not serious, but it is fun, and it is funny, and everything else. There's some serious moments in that too. Thor's father dies, and they have to deal with that stuff. That's pretty serious stuff, but it was in a funny movie. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. I'm going to be headed into spoilers now, so if you don't want to see them, you can shut it off here. Just please comment down below, like, subscribe, share with others. Well, if you don't want to see spoilers, I doubt you have any spoilers to say, but just a warning to everybody else. Try to keep your spoilers hidden, or don't write them at all down there. But please, leave your comments and thoughts down below, and remember, creativity is key. Now, on to the spoilers. I said earlier that there's a problem with the story, and it's not really a story directly, it's more with how the characters are responding to the story. There's the they find out the truth. When they find out the truth, they immediately flip. Well, we need to stop this, even though it's essentially against their programming. Even though I guess they weren't specifically programmed, they have free will. But even still, you would deal with that. And of course, emotionally, you would deal with that. You've been lied to, you betrayed. With how there's going to be a little bit more talk and discussion amongst the group, but the story just kind of flips. Oh, well, we got to stop this, and that's all there is to it. Of course, as you find out, it isn't quite so cut and dry, as one of them definitely is not for this and has been plotting from the very beginning, which that twist was great and not seen coming. Now, that's another thing. I first was like, wow, this actor is very dry or very straight-faced and all this. He seems very serious, even in lighter moments with the other characters. He's terrible. And then they revealed that he's been behind a lot of this from the beginning, and suddenly it makes sense while he's doing that. So first I thought it was just the actor bad acting, but no, this was all part of the story. He's also dealing with stuff too, like he was straight-faced and whatever, but they, well, that's what he's dealing with, because you find out that he's behind all this, but he's also at odds with himself about it too, right? And kind of destroys himself in the end, the whole flying into the sun. It's like, let's not kid Icarus, he flew too close to the sun. I guess flying into the sun is too close, but the conscious deviant guy, I did not want to see him get killed. I don't know about you guys, but that's what my thoughts were. It's like, can he, if he's reasonable, he's got reason now, he can think, can they reason with him? But no, we had to have Athena fight him off. I mean, he was being kind of cruel there too, using her feelings there, but it's like, I didn't want to see that. Part of me, I don't know why. It's like, yeah, well, yes, I do know why. It's like the deviants are caught up in this scheme just as much as the Eternals, and I guess that made me sympathize with him. He was still hell-bent on destroying them, even just like they were before he had gotten consciousness. But could they have been talked out of it? Maybe. But he just ended up getting wrecked. Maybe he survived that. We'll see more later. I don't know. Probably not, because I don't think he's... I don't know. I felt like they could have done more of that, or at least done more of that later in another movie, which I hope still happens. I don't know what's going on. Is obviously the critics are giving it poor reviews, and then I don't know. Go watch it. Give it good reviews, because that's what it deserves. I mean, not reward-winning reviews. I don't think it deserves that. No, not whatsoever. But go ahead, watch it. Let me know what you thought about it. We can have discuss the spoilers down below. Just try to keep it, space it out so nobody glances and sees spoilers, because that always sucks when that happens. Um, but yeah, let me know what you guys thought overall. Oh, another thing. That the celestial, at least the one what they showed coming out of the ground. I'm sorry, him emerging from the ground, he was not big enough to destroy the Earth. Not the size that they showed. I think the Earth could take that being pulled out from it. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit more complicated. Like all the magma would have. I don't know if it was maybe at the very center of the Earth, and he, on his way of exiting, made a hole straight to the center of the Earth, and the center of the Earth cooled down, and definitely wouldn't be an explosion like they showed in that. I don't know if it was really a flashback or just of an image of what things could happen. But either way, what they showed doesn't seem feasible. But, you know, it's hard to make something on that grand a scheme. It was definitely big, but it was... And it happened in the ocean, no less. So, you know, water's there to cool things down. I don't know. Anyways, that's my Eternals review. You guys have a good day, and always remember, creativity is key.